So I wrote this book because I was aggravated at all of the crap and propaganda and just absolute outright falsehoods that people were saying about gun control, and that they were saying about the Second Amendment and Second Amendment laws. You know, it's when you're talking about restricting someone's natural rights. I mean, we have a lot of natural rights in terms of our being able to exercise them that are under fire right now. We don't really need another one to be under attack as well. And so that's why I wrote it. Every single gun control argument that you can think of is addressed in this book. I spent a year and a half putting this thing together. I had research help, and just I wanted to make it something that's easy to read and something that's not a boring, because you can get really, I mean, this can get boring if you're looking into criminal statistics, you're looking into, you know, a legal precedent, you're looking into the history of it, going back a pretty far away. I didn't want to get so into the weeds that people were going to be like, how is this applicable to today, and be bored by it. I wanted it to be an entertaining read, so that's what it is.
Do you touch on the high capacity magazines? Clips,
that's not even a word. Just standard capacity. Standard capacity magazine.
The reason why I'm saying that is because that's what they're calling it.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I hate that people call them that, because that just demonstrates when anyone's like, well, what about high capacity magazines, Dana? Like people who actually think that high capacity magazine is a thing. You know, I mean, you have standard 30-round magazines, you know, that you get, and you can make something if you have basic remedial shop skills. You can go into your garage. Actually, you can go to Loesch, pick up a few things, or Home Depot, pick up a few things, go into your garage, and make, you know, a mag that can hold as many things as you want it to hold. It's that easy. It's an unenforceable law.
So what kind of pushback are you receiving from the book? Obviously from the left, or for the anti-gun lobby?
I've been called a slut, and I've been called somebody who's glorifying the weapon that was used in Sandy Hook. And Media Matters tried to say that because I excerpted founders' quotes from their speeches and didn't print the whole speeches, that I made up quotes, which was ridiculous and easily disproven. So that's basically it. No one will go near the statistics in there. They just try to keep it on the periphery.
Right, because they probably can't.
You can't argue it.
Right,
it went through 2 legal reads and a research read. You're not going to argue that book. Well, you know, I mean, in terms of gun control has a very simple origin. Gun control's roots are racist. When you look back into history, everything from the removal of American Indians from Georgia to Oklahoma, the first federally backed gun grab, that was what Wounded Knee was a gun grab. That's how that happened. That was the federal government thinking that, you know, minority Americans did not have the right to possess firearms. The Reconstruction era of the South. Those were Democrats. Andrew Jackson was a Democrat. The same ideology that has been stripping people of rights since the beginning of time is the same ideology that was in Chicago, in Otis McDonald v. Chicago, arguing that a black man on the South Side couldn't have a handgun for self-protection after every other home on his street had been broken into and women had been assaulted. He wanted a handgun for protection. The same ideology that existed back then to deprive people of rights exists today, and they're still going after the same people. They're going after black Americans. They're going after American Indians. They're going after women. They're going after minorities. You know, and that's what I find infuriating. One of the arguments that was made that I address in this book was this study that's been pushed. Like, well, women shouldn't keep a firearm in the home because it's just going to be wrestled away from them and it'll be used against them by their assailant. And here's our study to prove it. Well, the guy who did this study, his name's Dr. Arthur Kellerman, refused to release his data for a number of years. John Lott went after him. Dr. Gary Kleck, who's a Democrat who hated guns, and as a criminologist went to study and research firearms and criminal statistics and had his gun control prejudice changed when he realized the facts. They were going after Kellerman, saying, well, where's your data to support this? As it turned out, Kellerman completely lied and fabricated this entire study that's been used by the Brady campaign, by Bloomberg, by Mayors Against Illegal Guns, Moms Demand, Every Town for Whatever the Hell. They made up these statistics. He was using statistics of women who were assaulted away from home by a dude who had his own illegally possessed firearm, not women who had guns in the home. And that study's been rendered completely irrelevant, but people today still cite it because they want the narrative. Moms Demand's trying to pressure Kroger into banning guns and ignoring state and local law. And they came out with a study saying, well, 64% of Kroger shoppers say that they don't want a gun in Kroger. What do you base it on? I went to the Benison Group, who did the poll. Turns out Joel Benison, who owns the group, is a senior Obama strategist and is a big-time push pollster. They didn't release any data. There were no tabs at all. Nothing was released with this. They said they did 800 calls. Does that translate into 800 individuals? Where did you call from? People in New York are going to poll drastically differently from people from Texas. How many were men, women, own guns, party affiliation, information. They just wanted the optics, the narrative.
But of the 800 calls, how many of those calls were actually answered?
Exactly. They just made 800 calls. Yeah. And they were running with this. They attacked Kroger shareholders. So I get into the studies. I get into their methodology. I get into who is the gun control lobby. I get into what the founders said about it. I get into the whole terminology of what is an assault weapon. Do you realize that assault weapons have been around since muskets? We've had full-on assault weapons, fully automatic weapons have been around since muskets. During the Revolutionary War, the Continental Congress, listen to a guy named John Belton. He had the Belton gun. It was an assault weapon, and it was capable of rapid fire, and it was fully automatic. And they were going to buy these firearms called the Belton gun, and there's the Puckle gun. There are a number of different types of guns. They were around then, but it was too cost prohibitive. So they were completely aware of the technology. Look, the passage of time does not render our natural rights anachronistic, period.
One of the chapters in your book is named Violent Europeans. Quickly, what do you mean by that?
Everyone always likes to say, well, Europeans are such a peaceful people because they don't have guns, and it's so great over there. People like Piers Morgan. It's so much better than over here in the United States, but look at the violent crime rate. Look at the murders, assault, rape, drastically higher than here in the United States. And I break it down like country by country. I compare the UK, I compare England, Australia, Britain, not just England, but the entire UK, go into Australia. I look at every single European country, or the ones that have been used as examples in the past like 5 to 6 years, and compare their crime rates to those of the United States. They still have mass shootings too, by the way. They still have mass shootings in England. They still have mass shootings in Australia, despite the fact that they say they've completely rendered those things obsolete. They just think, well, it's not, you're still worse, America. There's a prejudice against America, but yet we're the back-to-back World War champs, so whatever.